Guess who we haven't talked about in too long? His name is about to be in the headlines, and by about maybe a couple months from now, this guy right here, Nick Bosa, best defensive player in the NFL, entering his final year under contract with the 49ers, eligible for a mega deal that I think is going to be the largest in 49ers history. And it's very likely that this thing gets signed at the end of July, maybe the beginning of August. And I'll explain why. That's the timing on Nick Bosa's deal. It's time to refocus attention on big number 97 because the 49ers are going to start phase 3 of OTAs, the offseason program, next week. Bosa is not likely to be present because he lives working out on his own. Nick Bosa doesn't need OTAs. We've seen how dominant he is without them. This is all voluntary stuff, by the way. Players are not required to be at OTAs. So don't let anybody freak you out by reporting and misrepresenting the context of the situation when Nick Bosa likely doesn't show up next week. It is the veteran mini camp that is mandatory, and that is not slated until June. So we expect Nick Bosa there. Even Deebo Samuel was there last year, and he was holding out. So the 49ers can impose fines for anybody that doesn't show up to veteran minicamp. And this Nick Bosa situation doesn't appear to be headed down that path. But the 49ers and Nick Bosa's agent, Brian Aralt, are still going to have to find middle ground. And it might be tough to find middle ground because Bosa is the reigning defensive player of the year, and he is set to grab the bag. Let's take a look at potential timing in this situation because Brian Aralt, who's Nick Bosa's agent, is also Joey Bosa's agent, and he leverages deadline pressure with the best of them. The deadline here is the start of training camp. That's really the only deadline here. If that deadline is missed, well, then each subsequent day becomes a deadline in and of itself because the 49ers do not want to live without Bosa. So he's got that bit of leverage here, but the 49ers also have the bag of money. And obviously Nick Bosa wants that. He's currently under contract for $17.9 million fully guaranteed in this 2023 season. Although maybe fully guaranteed is an oxymoron because if Nick Bosa doesn't show up and doesn't play, he isn't entitled to that money. So there is that leverage from the 49ers side. Still, I think cooler heads do want to prevail here. And I think the 49ers and Nick Bosa both want to find a way to lock him in long term before the team gets to work or shortly after it gets to work. Because Joey Bosa, represented by the same agent, Brian Aralt, signed on August 1st, 2020. You'll notice that's right at the start of training camp. I believe in 2020, they pushed back the start of training camp a little bit. So that might have been right there, right before that COVID year camp started. The deadline pressure worked. And we expect the deadline pressure to work again. That's what John Lynch is talking about. I'm sure that's what Nick Bosa's side is talking about. That's when push comes to shove. That's when that pressure causes the diamonds to crystallize, right? That's when we might finally see the contract. The operative question here, and if you go to this piece, this is what I wrote up on The Athletic, what Nick Bosa's new contract, a likely 49ers record might look like. You can see the link to that in the description. I'm going to put it in the chat section again. There got a couple of parameters that we're going to watch, and then we have to judge them within the context of the 49ers salary cap. First, here are the top defensive tackle contracts in the NFL. The only reason that I put this up here is because Aaron Donald. Look at Donald at the very top of the top DT contracts in football. The Rams star, $31.7 million per year. You'll notice that's better than even the top edge rusher contracts. $28 million per year is the high watermark there with TJ Watt. Joey, that contract that I just mentioned, signed on August 1st, 2020, $27 million. Myles Garrett, 25. Khalil Mack, 23.5. Max Crosby, 23.5. So the way these things work is a great player, especially defensive player of the year, is going to one up the other guys at his position with the most valuable contract for the position in the NFL, which would also mean that Bosa is going to sign the most valuable contract for a defender in the NFL if he surpasses Aaron Donald. So you could see that the edge rusher numbers go up to 28, but then Donald blows everybody away at 31.7 million. Right there, 31.7, even though defensive tackles on average are not paid as much as defensive ends. So Deron Payne, 22.5, Javon Hargrave of the 49ers, 21 million. If Bosa surpasses this 31.7 million annually, then the 49ers will have the highest paid edge rusher. That seems like a given. And the third highest paid defensive tackle. They'll also have the very highest paid defensive lineman in Nick Bosa if he surpasses Aaron Donald. And Hargrave, well, obviously he ranks amongst the defensive tackles. 21 million wouldn't make the list for defensive ends. So will Bosa surpass Donald in APY, average per year? And then will Bosa surpass TJ Watt in fully guaranteed money? That's right here. That's the biggest deal for a defensive player ever. 80 million fully guaranteed. Bigger even than Donald, who signed for only 3 years at 46.5 million guaranteed. So you have two parameter numbers. You have Donald's 31.6 million per year, and you have Watt's, TJ Watt's 80 million fully guaranteed. That's what we're looking at in terms of Nick Bosa's potential contract. I drew up what a contract might look like and how the 49ers could potentially fit it into their salary cap situation. And this is where Parag Marate, this is Brian Hampton, Jeff Diamond, the 49ers salary cap guys. This is where they're going to have to get creative, but I've studied other NFL salary structures, contract structures recently, and teams have gotten creative if they have the capital to do so. If the 49ers sign Nick Bosa to a $40 million signing bonus, they could spread the cap hits out here, $8 million per year. If they give him the secondary option bonus, the double bonus structure, blue and green here, that kicks in a guaranteed bonus next year, they could spread another 10 million or so out over 5 years up until a void year in 2028. And they could keep Nick Bosa's cap hit here for the 2023 season at $10.08 million. That would actually lower Nick Bosa's cap number from 17.9 to about $10 million. If you want to know more about how this mechanism might work, because I agree it is fascinating stuff, be sure to go check out the description. Be sure to check out the link to this article. And I explain how the 49ers can use the double bonus structure. Hell, they might even use a triple bonus structure. You could add a third option bonus that kicks in down the line. You just have to be willing to commit guaranteed money to Nick Bosa. And it's Nick Bosa, so you probably aren't too afraid to commit guaranteed money to him. The only way that it burns you is if he gets hurt or, he somehow loses effectiveness and then you still owe him that money. And then it essentially is dead money on the cap because he's not producing. But I think Nick Bosa, who is a robot programmed to rush the passer, is not a big risk to be somebody that makes the 49ers blow through their money for no reason. That's the gamble that the 49ers are going to take. In this piece, I predicted what Bosa's contract might end up looking like. My prediction is 5 years and up to $159.08 million, or that's this structure right here. That is a good $31.8 million per year. I know Aaron Donald was at 31.6. So the 49ers can employ this creative structuring to get Bosa the money that beats out Aaron Donald and potentially even the fully guaranteed money that beats out somebody like TJ Watt. Brian Aralt, Bosa's agent, is going to show up and he's going to play hardball. You know that that's coming. And the 49ers are going to have to pay up. Now, you have to look at the 49ers' larger situation. Are the 49ers willing and able to fit Nick Bosa into what is a tight salary cap situation? Well, in 2024, the 49ers already have over $273 million in liabilities. That's money owed to players, although it's not fully guaranteed to players. They can cut guys and probably recoup a lot of that. But right now, $273 million in liabilities. And if the salary cap is projected to be $265 million, if it rises again to about that level, they'd be about $13 million over the cap. So the key is to keep Nick Bosa's salary cap hits lower in the near term. The problem is in 2024, if you look at my proposal, the cap hit would explode from 10 million to 36 million, although carryover space is handy, and the 49ers have some space right now that would carry over to next year. You would have to continue your strategy as the 49ers of not re-signing B-list guys. Nick Bosa is obviously part of the A-list core, and I can illustrate that right here. This is my 49ers simple roster building process. You guys want me to zoom in? We can. I could show you where we're at on the spectrum here in just a second. Oh, that's not good. That's not gonna there. I can see it all. So the 49ers building strategy. Number one, acquire and develop A-list players. Two, pay those A-list players. That list can grow because the salary cap is expected to grow on an annual basis. Three, don't pay B-list players when free agency comes. Obtain comp picks through their departures instead. Four, develop staff. And that means you restock the coaching staff and you're able to add more compensatory picks. And five, pick your next group of A-listers. Well, where are we at in this Nick Bosa situation? Well, in 2019, the 49ers used a number 2 overall pick on Nick Bosa, who warned the Cardinals not to use their number 1 on Kyler Murray. They didn't listen, so the 49ers got Nick. They acquired A-list talent. He's been A-list talent ever since the start. They didn't even need to develop him into A-list talent, but he has gotten better since year 1. So number 1 happened in 2019. It has been seamless for Nick Bosa outside of the ACL tear in 2020. The 49ers right now in this particular scenario are number 2. They can pay Nick Bosa because the A-list core is growing as the salary cap does. They just have to creatively structure it so that it fits within their current plans and will fit within the plans in the future. It could be even more creatively structured than this if the 49ers can't afford this, the $36 million cap hit that I've proposed for next season. They could add that third bonus. They just have to be ready to spend right now. If you're ready to give a player cash in the bank right now, it can amortize over the length of the contract. That means rich owners are in a better position than poor owners to work their way under the salary cap. And with Nick Bosa, well, he's going to command a massive signing bonus. I think in the article, I talked about signing bonuses for right here, NFL edge rushers. Watt is at $36.5 million. Joey Bosa, $35 million signing bonus negotiated by Brian Arolt, same agent as Nick Bosa. Khalil Mack, $34 million. Well, go to my proposed contract and you're going to have a signing bonus of $40 million in this one if the 49ers do this. So it will take the biggest signing bonus in NFL history. It's going to take commitment from the 49ers ownership group. It's going to take commitment from Nick Bosa to, if he excels 2 more defensive player of the years, he's going to be worth all that much more. It's going to be like Patrick Mahomes' contract. It's going to age really well for the teams. It's going to have to take some commitment from Nick Bosa to realize that, if he continues performing at an extremely high level, even a very lucrative contract right now might not be the most valuable in football 2 or 3 years from now. But stability is what's important. That's what Nick Bosa is going to get up front. And it seems very, very probable that the 49ers and Nick Bosa's agent, Brian Arolt, will be able to get a deal done. All right, 49ers ready to grow their A-list core. I'm ready to grow the question section. Well, sir, how has Sam been looking in camp? Camp hasn't started yet. I hate to break it to you. Training camp does not begin until late July. It's mid-May. So you still got 2.5 months for that. Yeah, you could buy some insurance in case of injury on these contracts. They did a little bit on D Ford's contract. That brought down some of the cap hits because obviously D Ford was hurt and wasn't able to deliver as much as the 49ers needed him to. So insurance is something that I think the 49ers will do. They take out insurance policies on some of these very, very valuable contracts, and they can do that in Nick Bosa's case. The 49ers are in the group of rich owners. Somebody asked, where are they in terms of rich owners versus poor owners? They definitely, with Levi's Stadium, they're printing money every year. That has allowed the 49ers to give out big signing bonuses. And it doesn't seem like a lack of spending has been an issue for this ownership group ever since Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch have taken over. It has been for the Raiders. The Raiders, that's a poor ownership group. Not the case with the 49ers. Mike says, smash that like button. Defoe was an A-list player and the Niners effed up, says Carlos. Well, yes, he was an A-list player. There was one difference with DeForest Buckner. He was an inherited A-list player. He was drafted in 2016 by the previous regime, Trent Baalke and company. He wasn't drafted by Lynch, Shanahan and company. And I think that if he were drafted by them, there would be a much higher likelihood that he stayed. This is a decision that even today, the 49ers, they weigh it. You can't say that they completely screwed it up because from a trade standpoint, it made sense. They got the first round pick back, and they also saved enough money to be able to sign Armstead and Jimmy Ward. They did not get good production or have not yet gotten good production from the first round pick that they got back because Javon Kinlaw has been hurt. But from a process standpoint, it was sound. Now, if you attach greater sentimental value to any particular player, you're less likely to do this. So we know the 49ers don't like to move their A-listers. We're still trying to see if Brandon Ayuk is going to fit into that group of A-listers. But even if DeForest Buckner clearly fit that group of A-listers, the 49ers regime did not draft him. So there wasn't as much sentimental attachment there. And I think that that's definitely one of the reasons why DeForest Buckner became a Colt. It's all water under the bridge now. I was speaking of Javon Hargrave. He's a better pass rusher than DeForest Buckner. Better metrics across the pass rushing board. He's now a 49er. So the 49ers have gone back and made sure that they have reacquired star power at that defensive tackle position to pair with Nick Bosa. Armstead was an old regime and they paid him, yes, but they paid him less than Buckner. Buckner was at $4 million per year more, and Armstead, they had to pick which guy fit this defensive line better. Armstead could play outside and inside. They decided that versatility at $4 million per year cheaper was what they would go for because it also allowed them to re-sign Jimmy Ward. So it wasn't an either or kind of situation here. It was DeForest Buckner and all your money, or Eric Armstead and some money left over so you could sign Jimmy Ward, add him to the mix. And yeah, there's always going to be stuff that you might regret. There's always going to be stuff that brings some bad and some good. It's about the totality of the moves. And I think that the totality of the moves have worked in the 49ers' favor under this regime. Forktail Devil says Hargrave will exercise the ghost of Buckner. It is true that last year the 49ers interior defensive line was the weakest portion of the roster. Javon Hargrave should fix that. Does it really, though? The 49ers had the number one defense in the NFL last year. 2021, they had an excellent pass rush down the stretch. You don't have, again, you wouldn't have Jimmy Ward. You would have been really thin in the secondary, and you already had the number one defense last year. It seems that the collection of talent that the 49ers had in 2022 and 2021 ended up being just fine, even without DeForest Buckner. So has it really haunted the 49ers? Because I don't think that the number one defense in 2022 was that big of a problem for this football team. I think QB injuries are what are haunting the 49ers. And yeah, I mean, yes, they've downgraded from Buckner to Kinlaw, but if you look at the big picture, has it hurt the team? Has it really derailed the 49ers? I don't think you can make a compelling argument that it has. They've gotten worse at one position, but they've made up for it at others. And now, well, with Javon Hargrave back in, they can turbocharge this defense to yet another level. New defensive coordinator, Steve Wilks, as well. Yes, signing Nick Bosa will free up cap this year. If you look at this, I'm sure you joined a little bit late, but I'm projecting a $10 million cap hit this year. Bosa's cap number, as we speak, is $17.9 million. So the 49ers can definitely save there. All right, let's open up the questions. Yeah, I don't think I'm looking at the positive necessarily. I think I'm just looking at the reality of the situation, right? I'm saying that the 49ers obviously did lose a good player in DeForest Buckner. They got worse at defensive tackle, but people like to zoom in on, oh, they got worse, this is terrible, without looking at the other side of the coin. The other side of the coin is they save money, they're able to sign somebody else, right? So you have to look at this in the big picture. Otherwise, you're going to be able to criticize every single move without abandon. You're not going to, you'll have no end in sight. You always have to consider the larger team building aspect of things. So I try to look at this, I don't think positively, I think I'm looking at this thoughtfully. And it's a controversial move, no doubt. I'm presenting both sides of the cause and effect flow. Do I think the 49ers will make any more big moves in free agency? Well, if they want to bring in another edge like Yannick Ngakoue, Justin Houston, that would be smaller. He's older now. They could do it closer to the start of the season as long as these guys remain unsigned. That's the one move where the Niners might target somebody if the roster stays as is. Remember last year you had an injury. Jimmy Ward got hurt and they signed Tashawn Gibson. I know it was a smaller signing, but he played really, really well. So maybe an injury in the offseason or in camp dictates another 49ers signing. Whose contract could most likely be restructured to be able to pay Bosa? They're already able to pay Bosa without restructuring anybody. They have a good $11 million in cap space right now. And again, they will free up 2023 room by paying Bosa, because what will happen is they'll give him a ton of money and it will be stretched out like an accordion against the cap into future seasons. So we'll actually save money for 2023. So nobody needs to be restructured. They just need money for in-season trades and or off-season signings if they want to pick up an edge rusher. That's why they recently restructured Christian McCaffrey. Were the 49ers fairly set this year salary cap wise? Do I think they may increase the amount this year beyond 10 million to save in future years? Yeah, well, so it carries over, right? So if they don't end up using all 10 million that they have or 11 million, it will carry over toward that $273 million liability year in 2024 when they're going to need some cap space. Some tough decisions might be coming in 2024. How much of an imprint strategy will Steve Wilks put on the defense, and what do you see that being? Okay, great question, because I have a 2,000-word article about exactly what you asked me out on The Athletic. It came out today. Check this out. Inside Steve Wilks' crash course on the 49ers defense and the history behind it. So Steve Wilks is a guy who doesn't specialize in zone or man. I mean, he runs both. He's a guy that runs complex schemes on the back end because he's a DB background. So he's in charge of the secondary. He's going to be up in the booth. He's not going to be on the sideline. He's going to be charting those machinations. He's going to let Chris Kasarik do his thing. He's going to let Johnny Holland do his thing with the linebackers. And he's going to make sure those cornerbacks in particular are ready to go. Is it going to be more man coverage than the 49ers are accustomed to? Probably, because he believes in the talent on this team and he likes those pass rushers going mano a mano up front. He thinks that if you clamp down on the back end with man coverage, it buys Nick Bosa some time. Coverage fuels rush, right? So I think it's going to be a mix of man and zone, but, biggest thing, more blitzing, more controlled aggressiveness. Steve Wilks was defensive coordinator last in 2019 of the Cleveland Browns. They blitzed 38% of the time. Number 5 in the league. 49ers last year only blitzed 21% of the time. Number 20 in the league. So here it is. Check it out. I copied and pasted the link to the Steve Wilks article. I talk about how the 49ers are assimilating him into their system. So really, really important process that's going on, because he didn't bring – Kyle Shanahan told Steve Wilks, do not bring your assistants. We're not going to hire them. Learn to work with our guys. Learn to work with Kasarik. Learn to work with Holland. Learn to work with Daniel Bullocks, who got promoted to DB coach. He's going to be working at practice with the safeties, and you're going to see Wilks working with the cornerbacks. That's, if he succeeds within that structure, the 49ers believe they can elevate this defense past where it was last year. And it was already number 1 last year. They could just make it a more dominant number 1 in 2023. Adam Peters loves the Bay Area. He's from Cupertino. He might have a shot with the 49ers in the future. John Lynch wants to stay along as long as he doesn't win a Super Bowl for sure. I don't know if he wants to stay on past that, but John Lynch still has that competitive itch that he's trying to scratch. So Adam Peters, who grew up with a story of meeting Joe Montana in an elevator at Candlestick Park, Adam Peters this is his dream job. He loves working for the 49ers. He's also a little shyer in terms of interviews. He's not, the guy that loves to be Captain America, the face of all the interviews like John Lynch. So he isn't mad at this assistant GM of his childhood dream team, staying at home, kind of job. But there also is a path toward a higher role with the 49ers, especially if they do win a Super Bowl. So Adam Peters is in no hurry to bolt somewhere else if the path to his preferred dream job, GM of the San Francisco 49ers, is still possible. And he's sure enjoying his life right now running the 49ers. Marcus Harris thinks that Steve Wilks was a great hire. Parag Marathe is still the 49ers chief negotiator yet. Yes. And then you have Jeff Diamond and Brian Hampton as the salary cap guys. Marathe, obviously, also a salary cap guy, but a lot of the dirty work he's not going to be doing anymore, especially since he's taken on that acting ownership job for Leeds United, the soccer team in the UK. Do I think that Wilks wanting to blitz more is wise since the 49ers D-line can get sacks and pressures without blitz, which is ideal? Ryans was great at timing the blitz without getting too blitz happy. I mean, Ryan's got better. D'Amico started off struggling in 2021 with the blitzes. They weren't really hitting home. Listen, you're going to have to mix in some level of blitzes. Even Robert Saleh, who doesn't blitz a lot, last in the league, threw in some. So you pick your battles with Fred Warner. You pick your battles with Isaiah Oliver, the new nickelback. The cornerback can blitz every once in a while. It's about limiting explosive plays and winning the chess match against opposing offenses by dialing up blitzes that they're not ready for. So Wilks is going to be up there in that booth, and he's going to be trying to win a chess match against opposing offensive coordinators. Four-man pressure is great. That's what you want the majority of your pressure to be coming from. But every once in a while, you do have to dial up a blitz. It is a game of explosives now. You have to limit the explosives, and you have to create takeaways. 49ers did a great job last season. They led the NFL in interceptions. Steve Wilks is going to be trying to set the table for that with his blitzes. So blitzes are a great idea if you time them right, and if the coordinator knows what he's doing. They're a terrible idea if you don't time them right and he gets burnt. So answer to your question, TBD. Everybody take a deep breath, take a break, and smash that like button right now. Comment, smash the like button. That's what you need to do. Very low chances they ride with Bosa one more year and then tag him. They could save money on this cap this season in the short run by giving him a long-term extension. You want, again, the 49ers strategy is to grow the A-list core. The red carpet is rolled out for a contract extension. Bosa does everything exactly the way they want a player to do stuff. He is the best defensive player in the league. Don't string him along. Give him a long-term deal. Treat the people in your building right. That fosters good culture, and it also gives you some financial breaks up front. I think that's exactly what the 49ers are going to do with Nick Bosa. It's going to look a lot like Joey Bosa's contract with the Chargers, except bigger. Moving to offense now. Can Jack Coletto be the Kyle Juszczyk replacement? Well, the 49ers version of Taysom Hill. If Kyle Shanahan's interested in some kind of QB trickery like that, maybe. But the Juszczyk replacement, yes, Juszczyk is still under contract. Juszczyk can still be with his team for a long time. But just in case he gets hurt and you don't have Ross Dwelley on the roster anymore because you've drafted a couple other tight ends, you better have somebody on the practice squad that can deliver a tough fullback role. I mean, the fullback in the 49ers system is asked to make some really hard blocks that most players in the league can't make. So Jack Coletto, versatile Swiss Army knife, put on 15, 20 pounds. If you could put that weight on him, put some muscle on him, he could be stashed on the practice squad potentially, and he could be waiting in the wings in case Kyle Juszczyk gets hurt. Anything beyond that, way too early to tell. Again, this is another way too early to tell. Let's wait for a couple more weeks. Brock Purdy's supposed to start throwing footballs in June. And at that point, we can see what his prognosis on a more exact level is going to be. The Gore jerseys, Gore and Shane Leckler. And then right here, you can't see it, Rudy Rudiger. By the way, you guys like the 1080p? We made a couple camera tweaks. Hopefully it's nice and crisp up on the screen. You could broadcast or you could watch these in 1080p. That's been the case here for a couple months now. Hopefully you like the video quality. And I think, I have to say, best background on 49ers YouTube, right? You've got the jerseys. They're a little bit faded out. I've got the, with the cinematic mode, colors. You got to give Margot credit. She's the one that framed those. Colton, my best friend, is the one that got the jerseys themselves. The Gore one and the Leckler one are both autographed. So is this Rudy Rudiger one. Joe Montana's college teammate at Notre Dame. Hell yeah. Thumbs up. Why would they want to trade Lance even if they went with Darnold? Why would the 49ers willingly part ways with quarterbacks less than a year after they nightmarishly ran out of quarterbacks? I don't get it. I really don't get it. The only way that you part ways with Lance, and I've said this throughout the whole process, is if you're offered an exorbitant amount of capital in return for him. Like, Huge. A price that you can't say no to. Is anybody willing to pay that price? Will anybody be willing to pay that price if Trey Lance doesn't prove anything on the field? Almost certainly not. And that's why Trey Lance has always been likely to stay with the 49ers. I don't understand the just the desperation to move an asset when you're going to be paid less than what that asset is worth to you. The 49ers want to stack the QB room. There is nothing wrong with stacking the QB room. If it had been further stacked last year, they would have had a chance in the NFC Championship game. It couldn't have been further stacked, but I'm saying if it would have been, that would have been their ticket. So I don't understand why it's so hard to grasp the value of the 49ers having a deep quarterback room. Thank you, DG. Appreciate you. Appreciate everybody asking these questions. The 49ers can, yes, and the quarterbacks are all cheap right now, too. Again, you'd have to blow the 49ers away. It's a matter of price to move them off of Trey Lance. They're in their position of power here if somebody needs a quarterback. No cap savings this year in trading Lance, and he has no trade value coming off the injury. I hope he sticks around, learns, and if needed, balls out, says K-Dubsville. That's exactly how the 49ers are thinking. I don't like intro clips. I just like getting right down to business and talking. I think those countdowns are the tackiest things of all time. But an outro clip to be able to hit subscribe, is that what you're talking about? Maybe that's something that we have to consider. All right. Thank you, everybody, for joining. 30 minutes sounds about good. I'm going to get back into draft mode tomorrow, analyzing the 2023 draft. So Braden Willis, I got a piece I'm writing on him, tight end out of Oklahoma. That's going to be exciting. 49ers trying to grow that A-list core again. Let's see who they grab from this draft class, develop and turn into an A-lister. Everybody like the video, sub to the channel. I know you don't have an outro little clip or whatever, but you can hit that subscribe button right now, and I would appreciate it. Everybody take care. And thank you for watching on this beautiful Wednesday night.